Hey everybody, it's Brent, Central Arkansas. We're going to do an update on the no-weed garden. It's been about a month and it's long overdue. Some things have changed, and let me start by telling you that you can see here that I changed, or maybe if you compare to last time, you can see that I changed the format of the fertilizer, and I did that for a reason. But before we get into that, let me swing you around here. My greenhouse over here, the plastic started tearing at the very beginning of the year, and I was going to use this greenhouse I had decided I was going to use this greenhouse for another 6 months or so, until the greenhouse back over there that you can't see. Let me see if I can, that's one of the reasons why I moved it back there. Okay, you can start to see the beginning of it there. And that one's under construction. Pending finances, money. So okay, the reason why I said that is because at the last minute I added this extension from here this way on here for the sole purpose of growing tomatoes in the containers, because I didn't have the greenhouse. And when I did that, I was just going to hand water till I could catch up. And I did that and I couldn't keep up, and the plants were suffering. All the containers the vegetables in the containers were suffering pretty badly. And so what I did was I pulled this out. It's a 60 or 65 gallon container that held, what did I use it for originally? Pond, something to do with the pond. Anyway, this is I've had this for many years, so I decided I would take the fertilizer and I raised it up so I could gravity feed the containers, and I was going to do that twice a week, and then hopefully the rain would pick up pieces. Well, that didn't work either. So I got here, I decided to hook up a hose, and I came to this fancy watering thing here that I bought last year or year before, and that did the trick. I was running it off of that, and I bought this dripper line, which I kind of didn't want to, but I ended up doing it. Ends up being pretty good. But it's got a spacer every 18 inches on it, and it's feeding directly into each container. So that kind of fixed my situation. All I would do is I would take and drain the 2-gallon little mixer down there, fertilizer injector is what it is, and that one there, and the battery died, but anyway, and so I was watering with this, with just house water coming in through this hose right here, and everything was working fine. And then I started working on the real house we're fixing up to sell. And when I did that, I saw that everything was going okay, and I kind of let go of it. And what ended up happening is that it busted down at the bottom, and everything started suffering phenomenally, especially in the containers. And I assumed that it was the aged rice hulls in the containers, and I was just getting really frustrated. So that I eventually was out here, and I saw that it was spraying a small amount, which was relieving pressure, which meant that the whole system didn't get the fertilizer it needed. Long story short, that, along with a quick move from the greenhouse out here to have a 2019 garden, no-weed garden overall, is what frustrated me, I guess, led to the problems I had. So I had to get a replacement for that, and I got this dosing machine here. Cost me about $170, shipping included, and I have that coming down here. It wraps around and it sucks nutrient out of here. This is Master Blend, Epsom salt, and calcium nitrate mixed to Master Blend recommendations. Actually, it's 4 times. And the dosing machine here you can adjust. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But what I'm noticing already after just a few days is that things are starting to bounce back pretty good. All right. So this is the biggest change. I've got a line coming off of here. This is a 3-way timer. a line coming off here that goes to these wobblers, and the wobblers do the no weed garden that's actually in the ground overall. I've got one that comes here, number 2, line comes here, and it wraps around there, and it goes to every bucket all the way around. Sorry, I know I'm making you dizzy here. So you can see, you can actually just cut off, you can see some of the drips over there. And line number 1 is just a fill tank, and I've got a spray hose on it here. And I can set it to manual, and that's what I supplement feed the corn and the beans down there, because the wobblers don't supply enough. So all of that goes through the dosing machine, which comes off of the water-soluble fertilizer. It's not actually hydroponic fertilizer. This is master blend that's made for field use as well. It's probably made for that originally, but it's become known as hydroponic fertilizer. So anyway, water-soluble fertilizer feeds the whole garden. Now I'm going to take you on a tour real quick and show you what's growing on. Okay, now I've got a good bit of tomatoes set. And these tomatoes, I place the containers against the fence so that they can grow up on the fence. I've got little bamboo here spaced ever so often, and that keeps it from collapsing, along with this 550 cord I tied to the top. So all I do is clip the tomatoes to the fence, and that's done all the way around. And I've got decent tomato set. These tomatoes are my breeding, and they tend to set pretty darn good on their own. So even while they were in severe distress, they were setting pretty good. So with the improved watering, things are starting to look up good, starting to bounce back. Now I removed the tomato plants like you see in those. Actually, those were a grape tomato that I disliked a lot, and I kept giving it a chance, but it split too much. It tasted wonderfully. The tomato, the growth pattern of the tomato was very wispy, and the foliage was not very dense at all. It was just, but the tomato was so awesome, I kept like trying to select for non-cracking fruit. Anyway, to replace it, this is a large grape or a small paste tomato. We'll see how it goes. This is the F1 generation, the hybrid, and I'm really liking this plant right here. It is showing all the signs that I like, and it's got a really good sized fruit on it here. So I'm going to save seed from this one, and we'll see what happens in the F2 generation. That's where the biggest genetic outlier for selection comes in the second generation. Okay, so I've got this whole line here with the cages were cherry tomatoes, and I've got one I'm going to consider growing again. It's a dark cherry. It's a wonderful tasting tomato. I'll show you what it looks like here. And it has some tendency to crack, but it tastes so darn good. And excuse me, bug flew in my mouth and I swallowed it. So anyway, you can see there's some tendency to crack. Not all of them, but it's a great tasting tomato, and the foliage is really aggressive. It's just with the shortage of water, it's not behaving properly right now, but it'll bounce back. You'll see that in a couple weeks, or the next time I do an update. Still trying to swallow that dang bug. This line here is another promising line of mine. I crossed a red with a disease resistant variety, or an orange with a red disease resistant variety, and I'm getting excuse me, reds and oranges. These are reds here, and I've got an orange here, so those are promising as well. Now my cucumbers, these are my Parthenocarpic cucumbers, and I'm looking for ones like this that are growing that don't need to be fertilized. Dang bug, you don't want to go down, do you? Anyway, excuse me, that was kind of gross, wasn't it? But the long fruit, this one down here, is bouncing back really well. This is what I'm looking for. This actually happened in the last 2 days. My gosh, that got big. Anyway, I'm wrapping it around as it grows, and I'll wrap it around and around. Each wrap is 3 feet. So The plant that I like the best, I'm going to take and I'm going to take the runners and grow them into pots, and then I'm going to snap off to create 2 or 3 other plants, and then I'm going to change the sex on it so that I can breed it back to the mother plant and therefore save seed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've got a video on how I did that for this particular seed. All along the edge back there again is tomatoes, a variety of mine. Hopefully they'll bounce back. These 3 are a pepper and 2 eggplants, or actually 4 and 3 eggplants that are overwintered from cuttings. And so that's enough on the tomatoes. That's pretty much it. The tomatoes were kind of a disaster. All right, on this row right here we've got Madison's Cross. Madison's Cross is an open pollinated variety that I created. It's extremely prolific. It's like 5 or 6 times more prolific than early prolific, which is a very desired squash. And I've had my stepfather and another person that I gave seeds to that have grown it, and I can tell you pretty well certain now that this squash is, not only is it prolific, but it's also, the squash bugs don't like it very much. They do not like it, and I find that extremely awesome. So if you want a squash where the squash bugs don't like your squash very much and tear it, and you have little squash bugs crawling everywhere, this is definitely a variety worth having. And that's a typical squash, what it looks like. Let me see if it's coming in here, the picture. Anyway, that's what it looks like. Now I've got an early prolific here, and I think the 4th one is also early prolific. And I think the squash vine borer got this one. And this is an early prolific as well. Camera died again. I'm wondering if it's the battery contact instead of battery dying. This is a hybrid of Madison's Cross and early prolific, and it shows the same signs as far as squash bugs go. Squash bugs don't like it very much, and normally I'm overwhelmed with squash bugs, but you can kind of see what it does. It makes a 2-color squash with varying degrees of green and yellow, and yeah, it's just a F1 hybrid. Let me see if I can find one with a different color squash. Here's one that's more green. Here's one with some color. So you kind of get the general idea. I don't have any understanding of why it has green in it, except that one of the parents a long time ago was in Madison's Cross. These 7 plants here are eggplants, and I've got Louisiana green oval there, and it's all green. And then you get to the darker color stems here, and this is Makito. Makito is a hybrid, and that's what its squash looks like, between the camo squash and another squash I don't want to reveal. It's a pretty aggressive growing squash. It grows very well. It's a large medium size squash, and they put on a lot of them. I don't know if it's for the hybrid reason, but yeah, it took after a lot of the dark coloring from the mother plant. The rest of this row here are peppers. This is Gina Bella. It's a small little fruiting bell pepper tasting pepper. It turned orange, and I'm trying to make the next selection. That's a good looking one there, and that's what they look like. Then I have some large bell peppers mixed in here. Here's one that's growing. Let me see if I can find a large one here. There's one there, but it's not the shape I like. Here's one, and you can see here from the size of it, that's a nice bell pepper, and they're starting to grow more as plants get older. So yeah, that bell pepper I'm trying to develop. This will probably be the one I keep the seeds from. These peppers here are California Brian, and that's not a good example. I don't like the shape of it. but they're very prolific, and it is a dehybridization of, that's a nice one, of mariachi pepper I picked for productivity. It's highly productive, and the fruit turned from this color, even lighter in some cases, like a plant down there I'll show you, to an orange, to a deep red, and all the colors in between that spectrum. It's a phenomenal little plant. Let me see if I can find some that are lighter in color. Here we go, this one. And so anyway, I don't like the shape of that one. So I'll have to make a selection for the next generation, but this is got about half the heat of a jalapeno, probably about a 500 on the Scoville. It's a wonderful little pepper. I love it a lot. This is a vining plant I called Christmas. I'm trying to get that color pattern to carry to the next generation. And I keep regrowing it because I want the yellow and not the green coloration. But this one is kind of, I'm probably going to settle into keeping a green version of it. But I do have one promising one that doesn't vine as much that's yellow, but I don't know the coloration on it, and I'll show you why. This little plant here is the one. Now this is one of the parents of this a while back was called lemon squash, and this one's showing pretty great fruit production in such a small plant, which is kind of odd because it comes from a vining crop. In fact, another parent was the Tatumi squash, which is a very heat tolerant squash. So what I was trying to do was create a cross between the lemon and the Tatumi. In fact, the guy who gave me the original cross between Tatumi and lemon gave me the seed, and then I crossed it back to lemon. Yeah, that's what happened. I was trying to remember the exact thing here because I had a sister line to this that was a little bit different. So really this is Justin's cross crossed back to a lemon variant that I had. And I'm really liking this plant so far, if it'll produce some color for me. You can see the melons here all the way down to right there. This is mostly a Canary Melon times an Ambrosia, or times means a cross, times a cross with Ambrosia. And one other melon, I didn't know which one because I grew so many melons. And it could have gotten crossed with several different things, but the little babies are pretty standard, and I'm very curious to see what these are going to turn into. Now I'm having to come out here every morning and hand pollinate these because the bees just aren't here. I've seen like 2 one day, so the bees just aren't here. So let's go a little bit further down here, and this is my zucchini. My zucchini, if you ever seen the video a couple years ago called Productive Pepper and Squash, something like that. That one of it was my mariachi dehybridization pepper, and the other one was this one, a zucchini of mine. You can see there, I've got it selected here. I'm going to keep the seed from that one. But this is a wonderful, extremely productive zucchini, and it is a whole lot more flavorable than flavorable. Where's my mouth going? It's a whole lot more flavorable than your standard long greens, which are basically kind of bland and I usually don't like, but these things are absolutely wonderful. And so yeah, I need to make a selection for that, and so far it's been that one right there. In the 3 boxes, I've talked about these, I think it was the last video I did, but I got some green beans here. They're doing corn here, some of them are doing good, some of them aren't. That's to be expected because they're in a process of taking them down to an open top pollinated variety, so they're not going to be consistent, but I am seeing signs that I like, and it's very healthy. So the corn is doing great. I can't remember who mentioned something about it falling over. You wait to see if the winds are going to take it over, and I need to put little stakes up like I put on the fence over there, is little bamboo stakes, and tie some strings. That way they can have some play without falling completely over. So that's my plan with the corn. That little bit of plastic there goes over that, along with that, and I wrap it to keep the sun out. But anyway, that's why it's sitting there. Now in this row are my butternut squashes, and I've got, well, they're not growing, but I've got to cross these. Looks like something happened to that one. I'm not sure what. But I'm going to cross these to tighten them up, and I'm going to try to carry them down. It looks like one got bred there, but they're not flowering very much right now, which I'm a little concerned about. Usually they're a little further along than this in the year, but they look to be okay. Now these are some more of the zucchinis, and they're not as robust as that one, so it may have been a little bit of a water issue too, so we'll see. So that's it, everybody, pretty much it. That's enough, a whole lot of detail. Makes for a long video, and I'm sure you're getting tired of me yanking you around with the blurry views and all that. I just want to kind of give you an overall look. I am growing, I am doing things other than microgreens, and yeah, I'm loving it still. Gardening is great. This is Brent, you guys. We'll see you later. I wanted to end on a note here. This is the harvest today, and I am getting fruit out of the garden, so yeah.